Okay, so if you've suddenly found yourself as a single mom and you are feeling very alone, you are not alone. We're going to talk about my top 10 tips for how to survive your first year as a single mom. I am Ruth Williamson, and you will survive this. You can do it, and let's get right into it. Tip number 10, start laughing again. When I was newly in this situation and my kid's dad had just moved out, I was lucky enough to have a wonderful mentor who came to me. She looked me in the eye and she said, "Ruth, you must bring laughter back into your home." And she told me a story about her own experience of a very dark time in her marriage. She said, "I didn't think my marriage was going to make it, and my husband had actually moved out, and I realized that laughter had gone away." And for a lot of us moms, we realize that the last year or a couple years of a difficult relationship just dries up the laughter in the house. And this mentor said to me, do whatever it takes. Turn on Comedy Central, turn on Lucille Ball, hold your kids puts a pie plate on their head and starts marching around the house. Everybody put a pie plate on your head and march around the house, but do whatever it takes to bring laughter back. And if you think to yourself, hey, this is a really tough time. I don't have anything to smile about. I don't have anything to laugh about. You may need to fake it till you make it. First, just start smiling. And believe it or not, the laughter will follow. And if you can start with that first step, it will bring so much sanity back for you and your children. Just give it a try. You won't regret it. Number 9. This is a hard one. This is a little bit of a doozy for lots of us, but it is ask for help. Ask for help. But you're gonna need help. You're going to need help from your friends, from your family, from your faith community. You go to a church, you go to a place of worship, you're going to want to reach out. And don't keep this deep, dark secret of what's going on inside of you a secret. And a couple areas that you may need eventually to think about asking for help could be emotional. Absolutely. You need a shoulder to cry on. You need somebody to hear what's happening to you. You need to reach out and let somebody know that this pain is in your life so that you don't have to carry it alone. Physical helps. What does that mean? Well, you may need someone to help you move. Maybe you need to move out of your house. Maybe you have a Bible study group. They can come and help pack you up. Maybe you need childcare help. Maybe you need somebody who can walk your dog if you're at work. You know, it just depends on what your life situation is, but physical help to actually do physical chores. And lastly, financial. I know this is a hard one. You don't necessarily want to have to go to friends and family and ask them for money. And you may not need to, but you may need to look for community resources around you to find out, can you get help with groceries? Can you get help with your utilities? Can you get financial support or help from the community around you? And yes, eventually, if you need to, ask for help from friends and family. In a lot of cases, they want to help. They just may not know that you need help at this time. But don't try to go it on your own. Nobody is that much of a superwoman. Tip number 8, take care of yourself. Yes, it's easier said than done. I know. It's not selfish. It's not being a bad mommy to take care of yourself. And for a single mom, it's even more important because you have to do the role of 2 people. So if you're not healthy, there's no safety net. There's no fallback person. What are 3 areas that you can think about taking care of yourself in? Emotional, you need to take some time for yourself. Maybe that means getting up a half hour before your kids do. Maybe that means figuring out a way to use visitation time, if your kids have visitation with their dad, to recenter yourself and refocus, to do some things for yourself. Physical, don't stop thinking about yourself as a whole person that needs to be nurtured. And that doesn't necessarily mean you get a day at the spa, or you can go for weekly massages. There may not be a budget for that. When I was first single, I was broke. We were eating beans and rice. There was no money. But I discovered that there were little things that I could do for myself, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, to refocus, recenter myself, take care of myself physically. If you have health insurance and good health coverage, make sure you're keeping your regular appointments with your doctor, your family practice doctor, your OBGYN. Take care of your physical health. Give yourself a good bedtime routine so you're, showering, you brush, you floss. I know this sounds crazy, right? It's like I'm talking to a kid, but it's funny when we suddenly become a single mom, we're so exhausted, we don't take care of ourselves anymore, and it's really common. And lastly, in terms of taking care of yourself, your spirituality. Yes, for a lot of us moms, church is either a place we weren't going before, or maybe it's a place that is suddenly difficult because we don't want to face people and tell them that our marriage has fallen apart or that our marriage is in trouble. Find ways to nurture yourself spiritually. If you can get into a place of worship, great. We're in the middle of coronavirus right now. A lot of churches aren't even meeting. So maybe it's a devotional. Maybe it's 5 minutes of reading the scriptures. Maybe you're a person who does that in the morning. Great. You can get up early and do it. Fantastic. If not, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. 5 minutes of a little podcast before you go to bed or something like that. But finding a way to keep your own spirituality alive ends up doing so much for who you are as a person. Okay, moving on to number 7. And yes, this is a long video because these top 10 tips are going to make a big difference in your life. And if any of these tips are resonating with you now, then please go ahead, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Tell me in the comments, where are you struggling? What would help you? What type of tips do you need to hear about from another mom who's done this for a number of years now and figured out that, okay, you will survive that first year. You will make it. Tip number 7, don't let yourself dwell too much on the past. The past is behind you and you can't control it. And the reality is that for almost any of us who came out of a difficult relationship, if we're being honest with ourselves, there are things that we look back on with regret. It takes 2 to tango, and none of us end up coming out completely unscathed. Yes, you can go back and ask for forgiveness. Yes, you can acknowledge the mistakes you made. Maybe you can get into some counseling so you can sort of look back on that and figure out how to not make the same mistakes again in your future. But as quickly as you can, go ahead and turn forward and start looking at what your future looks like with your kids, what your present looks like right now. Maybe you can't even look at your future. Maybe you're feeling so broken, you need to just take it 1 minute at a time right now. And that's okay, because 1 minute at a time is all we have. So just take baby steps, figure out what's the next good thing for me to do. What's the next right thing for me to do? Is it just get myself out of bed today and get dressed? Is it get my kids out of bed and feed them? Do that. Do the next right thing. And don't dwell too heavily on the past. Save that for the counseling sessions and try to figure out, hey, what does my future with my kids look like? Because it's going to be awesome. I'm telling you right now. All right, tip number 6. This one's one that came from a bumper sticker that I saw years ago that said, if all else fails, lower your standards. And you might be thinking, I don't think that's possible. But it is, trust me. And I'm talking about areas that don't necessarily matter, that aren't the most important. Cooking. Maybe it's your housekeeping. Maybe it's extracurricular activities that aren't as important. Figure out how you can pare things down and lower some of those expectations that you've had of yourself. Maybe lower the expectations that you've had for all the activities your kids should be involved in. I'll be honest. The first year after my kid's dad left, I didn't cook much. I'm not saying we had cold cereal for dinner every night, but if it happens once a week, it's not the end of the world. So lower your expectations for yourself and figure out what it looks like to just keep smiling, keep being there for your kids, put your arms around them, hug them, and don't hold yourself to a standard that is unattainable for right now. There'll always be time in the future to improve. But for today, lower your expectations about things that aren't that important. Tip number 6. Tip number 5. Tip number 5. Figure out what good and positive things can stay in your life and how to keep them in your life. Not everything from before was bad. There may be some things about your family and your lifestyle and your routines that are wonderful, and you want to keep those things. Maybe it's certain holiday traditions. Maybe it's certain extracurricular activities the kids are in, a place where they can be really successful. Figure out what those things are and how you can keep doing them, but you keep the heart and soul of the things that were really valuable to your family. Maybe it's a bedtime routine. The things that were still good before, you can hang on to those things to give yourself and your children continuity. And that continuity makes a big difference in everyone's sense of stability, and it gives a type of peacefulness to you that you'll find to be really valuable. All right, tip number 4 is related to tip number 5, and that is figure out what needs to go. What is not a positive influence in your life? What has not been working for you? Maybe your kids being involved in 4 different sports just doesn't work anymore. Maybe your bedtime routine where their dad was heavily involved isn't going to work anymore, so you need to come up with some new routines. Maybe where you're living doesn't work anymore. Give yourself permission to figure out what in your life needs to change. And instead of holding on to things that aren't working for you anymore, you can let those things go. And in fact, I would say in some small areas that could be free, give yourself permission to make some quick changes that can be a reboot. It took me a year to take down the little romantic sayings that were up on my bedroom walls. You know the ones I'm talking about, always kiss me goodnight, all that kind of thing. It took me a year before I gave myself permission to take those things down. And when I did, it was mind-blowing. And I walked into my new bedroom. I put up some frilly pink curtains because I said, hey, it's a girl's room now. I can put up frilly pink curtains if I want to. I walked into my new room the next day, and it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders because I'd given myself permission to let go of some of the stuff from the past, to turn the page and give myself a little reboot. It was all free. You don't have to spend money, but you can let go of the things that aren't working for you, the things that are from your past. They may just be bogging you down right now. And that's true for you and for your kids. Tip number 3 is related to tip number 4, and that is go ahead now and start some new routines. Figure out some new traditions. Figure out some new things that are going to be benchmarks that you can look back on. They are sort of watershed changes that you made where it was a start of a new life for you and your kids. So don't be afraid to start some new traditions. Maybe you guys decide that on your birthday you're going to go out and go hiking. Go on a 2-mile hike. Go on a 5-mile hike. Maybe you want to pick up a new exercise activity. After my kid's dad left, I started running. I'd never been a runner before. I was just a chubby mom at home with 4 preschoolers. I didn't do anything like that, but I decided, hey, I want to reboot. I started a new routine. It took me a while to get into that, but it was a page turner for me. And you need that. You need some page turners. You need to be able to turn the page on this new chapter of your life. And right now, I know it seems hard, but trust me, it's going to get better. Tip number 2, do not be afraid to be a little bit weird. Don't be afraid to make some decisions that are going to be good for you and your family, even if other people don't necessarily understand them. Okay, what am I talking about? Yes, get counsel, get guidance from people around you. But if you know in your gut that there's something that you need to do for you and your kids, do it. Because you have to be the leader of your family now. You have to be gutsy. You have to be bold and courageous because you're making the decisions for you and your family now about how to keep them safe, how to keep them stable, how to make this time be the best that it can be for your children. And so if people don't necessarily understand, but you've thought about it, you've prayed about it, you've researched it, then don't be afraid to make bold moves. Maybe you need to move to another state and move back to be with family where you have more support. Maybe you need to switch careers. Maybe you need to change your entire routine. Whatever it is, don't be afraid to be a little bit weird, to be a little bit different. I realized I needed more income. I needed to stay home with my preschoolers. I wasn't able to go outside of the house and get work at that time. And so I rented out a bedroom in my home to a local college student. I had a lot of friends who said, "What? You're crazy. Why would you do that? Why would you have a stranger move into your house?" It turned out to be a fantastic blessing, and it gave me the cash flow that I needed to be able to pursue my passions and to stay home with my kids. So I had to be willing to be a little bit weird, to be a little bit crazy in order to do what my gut told me was going to work for me and my family. And last tip, tip number 1, my most important tip for you to survive your first year as a single mom is keep living your best life and never succumb to the broken home narrative for you and your kids. What am I talking about? There are going to be people in your life, I'm telling you right now, you will be surprised at the number of people who will say things to you right in front of your kids like, "Oh wow, you wanted your kids to be raised in a broken home?" Or, "Oh my gosh, it's so hard to be a single mom. What's going to happen when your boys are teenagers? How are you going to handle that?" They'll say things to you that convey to you either overtly or in a subtle way that your family is now less than, that you're broken. And some of these things come from outside of you, and some of them go on inside your head, and you tell yourself, "Oh my gosh, now I can't do this," or "We can't do this. We can't go out to eat, go to a restaurant because we're not a family now. I don't want to go out to a restaurant with just my kids." Or, "I can't train for a marathon and run a marathon. I'm a single mom." Or, "I can't go on a vacation now because I'm a single mom." Yes, you can. You keep living your best life for you and your kids, and don't listen to any of those narratives. It's true. Some of those things may be harder. The vacation may need to be ratcheted down. Maybe it's just a staycation where you and your kids stay home, stay in jammies, watch Netflix, and you turn your cell phone off. Whatever it takes, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. You just have to focus a little bit more on figuring out how to put all the pieces together as a single mom. But trust me, if you believe in it, you can do it, and don't let anybody tell you differently. You will survive this first year. If I were there, I'd give you a great big hug right now and tell you, "You're gonna make it, girl. You and your kids, you're gonna be fine." If you were asking yourself, "How can I make it? How can I do this? Can I survive my first year as a single mom?" The answer to that question is yes, you can. And I hope today these top 10 tips have given you just a couple ideas of how you can start with the baby steps to prioritize things for you and your family so that you can make it. Thanks for watching my channel. My name is Ruth Williamson. If you got any value out of this, please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons. It means a lot to me, and I am here for you. Go ahead, tell me in the chat, what have been your biggest struggles? How long have you been a single mom? What are your top 10 tips? What has helped you? Tell the community, because as single moms, we need to support one another. We need to help each other. We need to be there for each other. And I'm here for you. I'm Ruth Williamson. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a great day.